Well, today we will have our class on the last Bequeathed Sutra, and tomorrow too. No class on Saturday and Sunday. Monday and Tuesday, not so sure how long our class will last for this period of time, but we will complete the sutra, and then beginning from next week we will start with our Tantra Shastra. This is the first thing about schedule. The second, everything within Larungar is going well. Not too bad. Everyone is engaging in study and contemplation. I think everything will get better soon. What are you laughing about? Let's now continue our class on the last Bequeathed Sutra. Right, the oral transmission? No? Right, proofreading.
Yang hui na lag de zhang zi nu toba gang zi ka tsab zi wab shur ngang zhang zi konar te te shio pa li dan shuk si shinda zapi gob yo pa mam tong wa gam khichig ji me pi glanchin nyom ba dang naglam chung wi chig jin ndarwar khkawi nir de sim derwi tabla zombar shawu Garte sim de gyanbar jerna ganzig di gewi ngubo nam nyambarin jerwa tang sim de tsig sig de nebe manjipi ngubo gangyang medo dina gerlong da kechak sunji samde sim darwar shago gerlong da zawa tang tonga la rora na man temba jinda ftawa le zangan ji jorkir mapkitte Tēnā līg sōwā dāng, jībā dāng, kumbā sērvī lātā yinō. Chirtar wōngwī mētok rōpchir lēmbā na tīg zik dāng chilāg nō par mabjibā bzhindā, gērnō namjī jāng zhāngjī wārwa nōr tētag rāngā, nyōmōng bā sērvī chēt tsamdā lēngi, ngōmbā mē par flāng dēg zhāngjī gēsim vlaqbar na mafshāgō. Khwēr nam kēbē, naqshik ji nishik dang ftan ne kal girwa na tar chewir go ne di nipa zat manjik bab jino. Gerlong daga kechak nyamur sunsim ji gechu drib ne rtonzit maqton wa dang sanjir tormat dagang devjin da rtonzit maqton wa dang. Sankong la yang mdondon bi ngang ne ngarq sovra shaw. Matse kambur nil logbar kenji Zhimzhi gangyang mamshi par tunme par tongzit tongwarna mafshago. Dayang martaq ba miyin jikten tamchib chagbarin jirwan dashi ji rangnin mirdu chorwi tablab zombar fshayi ghanil lobe dindawar mafshago. Nyomon bi chonkin ji nartaqda marnang sopra fshabig jawo kyang janda medna chi fshira rangnit sapi lata mafkarwar vdewe ghanil lobar fshid. Nyomo ba tigzhirti keki semlang ne pa na chirtar zhirnaq boji keki mardaq ne pa vjino, nyarba vjino. Tela tsicham ji xchig ji mnirdab sarwar vshago, namjig zhirti vsarwa na gzod devr ghnil lugba yino. Ganjig zhirti maf sarwar nyarwa na chirmi ki kewa ji vsharte. Ngotsan chiryo ji kuzangda na jikten na ryan tamchi kim chog yino. Cherdang dambi xchagji chumun fshe pi ganzag mzambar fshe do. Dina ngotsan cherdang damba tagdag janji ghalag mirnit. 강식 모차 체르당 자르와라 용던 탐치 냠버린 예르 체르당 담비 강석너 게추 탐쳤당 담버린 예르 체르당 머담비 강석너 던조당 니스 메도 메도 加上一个多好吧多哎呀下面你这节目做的牛迷上念了没有没有念是吧今天好像有点晕你这节目做的牛迷上昨天我们节目我觉得바크르 다른 전도 실물도 돈바 특지 장라기 장자를 내저로 전이 정검사 저거 특지 실로일라 지메 번조자랑 소라도 공기 또반 법으로 신지로
The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of eons. I now see it, hear it, receive it, and uphold it. I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings. Let's generate the supreme bodhicitta. Now let us begin our study on the Buddha's last bequeathed sutra. This is the last teaching given by the Buddha after he already turned the wheel of Dharma for 49 years for the sentient beings out of his great compassion. And this particular sutra can be considered as a great heritage that is left by the Buddha. When you're studying this sutra, let you be a Buddhist or non-Buddhist, you can make some comparisons. Think about all the great people in this world. Once they finish their whole life's pursuit and their career that they've strived for the whole life, at the time of parting from this lifetime, whatever they've left behind, let it be a spiritual heritage or material heritage. In fact, we can compare all of those heritage that's left behind by those people, those famous and great people that's considered in this world. For example, out of all the biographies that I've read, some of the very famous people, for example, Albert Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, Sigmund Freud, and Friedrich Nietzsche. Many of those famous people, including the ones in China, such as Lu Xun and Li Bai, the great poet, at the time of their departing, at the time of their death, in fact, the way they face their death is very different than that of the Buddha. I really hope that as a Buddhist, you should engage in deep contemplation of that. Of course, all of those people that I stated beforehand, they've all made great contribution to the human society. And their spiritual heritage would last and contribute to the society for a long period of time, which people all recognize that. However, at the time of departing from this world, at the time of death, their experience and their reaction are still very different than those of the great masters, the enlightened ones, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Most importantly, at the time of the parting of a great person, in fact, he or she would care the most if the next generation would be able to continue such kind of research or such kind of exploration or follow the teachings that they've given. And whether if their teachings could bring happiness to many people, to the multitudes. And we can also compare, would the worldly beings departing be able to bring happiness, or their last teachings would be able to bring happiness to the worldly beings or not? I really wish all of you could read and study the Parinirvana Sutra. In fact, the Chinese Parinirvana Sutra is more complete. Though the Tibetan version also do have a few different translations, but it is the Chinese version is more complete in general. We can make comparisons. A worldly being who lived up to around 80 years of age, what could that person have left for the worldly beings, for all sentient beings, or for human beings? But the teachings given by the Buddha around the time of his passing into parinirvana, what kind of teachings he had given to the worldly beings? I'm not trying to say that the Buddha is really great because I believe in the Buddha. Rather, it is that I genuinely feel that the Buddha's teachings are of great help in terms of our practice, in terms of how we can tame our action as well as our mind. Now, from last class, we've already talked about how the 5 roots should not be distracted into the exterior environment. And then the Buddha used the 3 metaphors over here, such as how the cattle should be guided by the herdsman, otherwise the cattle would then ruin all the crops, or the violent wild horse that could lead to a person to be fallen into a deep pit, or if a person were to be robbed by all of that person's whole life savings. So those are all the downfalls of being distracted by the 5 roots. In fact, this is one of the characteristics of the Buddha's last Bequeathed Sutra. There are many metaphors within. In terms of the metaphors, in fact, I think this is very similar to the Mahayana Avatara composed by Ronsum Pandita. In the Mahayana Avatara, in fact, it also talks about the stories and then give different metaphors to further then help the people to understand the inferences. In this way, it would be easier for people to understand it and to take it. Previously, we've already learned what is going to be the results for the herdsman if his cattle were to destroy the other's crops, or if we were to be riding a violent wild horse, and what's going to happen to us if a thief were to, or a bandit were to rob all of our wealth. We all understand the result of all those kind of actions. Therefore, it will be easy for us to understand the teachings given and to understand it in a depth. Whenever we engage in studying the Dharma and contemplation, we shouldn't think that, oh, this is too simple for me. In fact, including some Khenpos and Khenmos, I can see from their attitude, they feel that, oh, this one is so easy. I've already studied it before, and it would be better for you it would be better for me if you can give me some deeper teachings, some higher teachings. Otherwise, this kind of teaching is too easy for me. I think this kind of attitude of pride, or this kind of attitude of condescension, or feeling that their personal realization have already surpassed the ones that's taught within the sutra itself, this is really inappropriate as a Buddhist. The previous great lineage masters were all very humble. Normally, the higher their realization, the more humble they are. So, as we've already studied before, that if we were to chase the external phenomena and then let loose of our 5 senses and let it to grasp whatever they desire, then such kind of a result would be unimaginable. According to the Buddhist logic, the Pramana teachings, in fact, it talked about how the 5 sense organs do not have any differentiations. However, once it corresponds to the external phenomena, then there will be the rejections or the graspings happening within one's mind, and that would further increase one's dualistic thoughts. For example, if we were to see something and hear something at first, our eyes and ears, such kind of faculty, the consciousness do not generate any differentiations. However, all of those kind of eye consciousness, ear consciousness, once they then blend into the dualistic differentiation of the mind, then we will think that, oh, this form is pretty and that one is ugly, and this sound is very nice and that one is terrible. We would then start generating such kind of dualistic thoughts. Last time we've already learned the importance of taming one's own 5 organs and the mind. Otherwise, if you were to let loose of all of those, you will be led to a horrifying result. For example, when I noticed that there are people in my tribe, they are very much untamed. They don't listen to anyone's teachings, not from the gurus, not from the monastery, not listening to their elders. They then, after a little while, would end up to be in jail because they've already violated the law, or some of them committed suicide, which is considered also as a very severe result. Similarly, even within the Buddhist community, some Khenpos and Khenmos may have certain disciples that tend to be very rude and really untamed, very coarse in many ways. And then if you were to have such a kind of person in your group, in your class, in your sangha, in your community, then everyone would be able to see it, to spot it right away. If you were to simply violate all kinds of regulations and rules and want to be free, you're actually just digging your own grave. Now, whenever we look at the teachings given by the Buddha, in fact, they're very logical, very scientific, and it is the kind of education that's well balanced. If you can receive this kind of teaching every day, then it will be of great help to both of your spirit and your body. Maybe it won't, the kind of benefit won't be very noticeable in one day, but eventually you'll be able to see that it definitely functions greatly to benefit you and to tame your own mind. Over here it says that since the 5 sense organs have the mind as their ruler, you should restrain the mind well. According to the Pramana teachings, it says that all the 5 sense organs do not have any power to rule. Therefore, the mind is really the king that makes all the decisions. And the Buddha says that your mind is as dangerous as an extremely poisonous snake. The mind can be destructing and is quite dangerous. The metaphor here says that your mind is as dangerous as an extremely poisonous snake. You probably know that once being bitten by an extremely poisonous snake, you would lose your life. Any kinds of wild animals or savage beasts or a hateful robber, they would inflict great harm to you in this lifetime. And the worst situation for all of these previously stated metaphor is that you would probably lose your life for this lifetime. However, the mind is even much more horrifying than all of these stated above. For example, a robber could rob you of all of your wealth that's accumulated for your lifetime. However, the mind could destroy you completely for lifetimes. Then the Buddha over here said that, in fact, such kind of afflictions and such kind of disasters that's created by a great fire compared to the kind of disasters that could be made by the mind is still not a satisfactory analogy for the kind of catastrophe that could be carried out by the mind. According to Bodhisattva Charyavatara, where it says that if one were to let go of one's mind, just like how the wild elephant that is untrained, such kind of result would be disastrous, just like one would be led to the hell realm. The mind would create far more disaster than that of a wild elephant. Therefore, in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it then says that if one were to tame this kind of mind, then all will be tamed. What kind of methods that we should uptake to tame this mind then? According to the collection of the essence of all Dharma, where it says that if one were to be very skilled at taming the mind, then one would be skilled at eradicating all kinds of faults. So, taming our minds would eradicate all kinds of faults for this lifetime as well as the future lifetimes. In this sutra, in fact, that's translated by Master Richun. In fact, it includes many different teachings. He also translated the Sutra of the meeting of father and son, as well as he translated the 50 verses of serving the teacher. He translated many important teachings. We can see from this analogy, our mind is indeed we should be quite fearful of an untamed mind. Whenever we observe our own mind, if your mind is tamed and is gentle, then in your lifetime, let it be in your life, in your relationship, in your practice, every aspect of your life would go rather smoothly and in an easy fashion. However, if your mind is not tamed, then all of the in fact, it could bring about the fruition that is disastrous and as of a result of desire, anger, and ignorance. Without taming your mind, such kind of result would be even worse than any kind of worldly disasters. We may feel that, oh, there's a great fire and there's some poisonous, for example, snake, and then there's bandits going on over there. People would feel that this is really dangerous, and people would generate great fear towards all of those harmful situations. However, for a practitioner, we should know that if our mind is not tamed, the disastrous result is even more fearful than that of the prior situations. Especially the anger and the desire, whenever it's blazing in your own mind like great fire, you yourself would know that, and not everyone else would be able to see it. So this is an analogy of great depth. Then the next analogy says that it is like a person carrying a container of honey who, as he moves along in haste, only pays attention to the honey and does not notice a deep pit. So as a person that only pays attention to the honey and trying to get the honey, but not seeing the deep pit, he already holds lots of different tools, and he's running to get the honey, and he only pays attention to the honey without paying attention to anything else. While running about, the result could be a great catastrophe, because he could fall into the deep pit, and that would endanger his life. by only paying attention to the honey, not noticing the deep pit around, then he could very well lose his life. We see nowadays in our real life, many people would grasp onto the relationship and wealth and fame and all kinds of enjoyment, worldly enjoyments, and without caring for the result. And mundane beings, majority of mundane beings only care about what happens today and not caring about what's going to happen later. Look at the inmates. In fact, their afflictions and their mind, because for that moment they did not transform their affliction and their mind, then they had to spend their life behind the bars. However, as a practitioner, after being trained in the Buddhist education and training, then we can consider ourselves that we've already already taken some insurance in some ways to our life. The worldly people would buy certain insurance. However, people cannot buy any insurance for the results that's going to take place after conducting mistakes. If one can receive the education from the compassionate Buddha and then tame one's mind, then this person would definitely be able to enjoy happiness for this lifetime and future lifetimes. Without taming the mind, only putting their eyes on the goal, that is the honey, and thinking that the honey is really good, is really sweet, and grasp onto it, then it's very easy for such kind of a person to fall into a deep pit. This is another analogy. Then the next analogy, in fact, I didn't really read into the commentary of those, but I do think all of the different analogies refers to the different objects that focus on the form, the smell, the taste, and the kinds of different objects that's in corresponds to the 6 roots. The next analogy talks about the mad elephant. Usually the mad elephant, for example, in the ancient India, they would train the elephant so that people can ride it. But if the elephant were to be mad and untamable and then even drunk, then people have to train it through various methods. Otherwise, the elephant would then trample over people or houses, and then they themselves could fall into a quagmire, and then such kind of result would be horrifying. So for people without paying attention to taming one's mind and body, they're just like a mad elephant that would fall into a deep pit. And then the next one the next analogy talks about a monkey that's jumping in a tree, and both of them are indeed very difficult to restrain. That is of the elephant as well as the monkey. Previously, we've already studied the different metaphors, such as, in fact, imageries. We would talk about mind just like the flashlight, just like the lightning, and just like the wild monkey, the mad elephant, and so on and so forth. In fact, we have to swiftly uptake any kinds of method to stop our distracted mind, so that our mind is not following our wild desire that could lead to horrific result. Therefore, people with right mindfulness have to observe their mind at all times. According to Bodhisattva Charyavatara, on the 4th chapter, it is on diligence, and the 5th is on right mindfulness, where it is detailedly talked talked about how to protect one's mind with right mindfulness. Recently, Khenpo Tsotrem Lodro has been giving the teachings on the detailed explanation of Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the ocean of virtuous teachings that's composed by Tongmei Zampo. Many people, in fact, are engaging in the diligent studying of this text. Some people said that Ponso Rinpoche had given the teaching of this commentary. In fact, he didn't. He once said that the commentary that's composed by Tongmei Zampo is of great profundity, and we have to study it. And after studying it, naturally, in your mind stream, there would be a natural rise of bodhicitta. However, later on, Ponso Rinpoche never had the opportunity to give the teaching, and he passed into parinirvana. After he passed into parinirvana, I vowed to give the teaching of this particular commentary. So back in 2006, I gave the teaching, and it lasted for a long period of time. There were over 200 classes on that particular commentary. I really hope that all of you here can study the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. I've given teachings on this for maybe about 4 to 5 times in Chinese language, and the recent one, the one I was talking about, is rather the most extensive, and there were 10 books on the transcripts of that teaching. If you don't have enough time to study it, then I really hope at least everyone every year should study the Bodhisattva Charyavatara once, as well as engage in the study of words of my perfect teacher once every year. If you can't do it every year, then maybe every 2 years or 3 years, but at least do not take too long to review those books. Otherwise, if you take longer and longer and postpone it, then your mind would get rather quite hardened. You definitely need to tame your mind at all times. If you take too long in between, then you probably won't be able to work with your mind anymore. You even forget about how to infuse your mind with the Dharma. Therefore, I really hope that you can engage in the studying and practice of Bodhisattva Charyavatara and to learn how to tame your mind. This is, in fact, an excellent text. If you can recite it, that would be great. If you even can't recite it, at least you can chant it. Even 1 chapter a month, that would be great. On top of that, we also have to have a sense of persistence when it comes to our practice. There are people who get overzealous at the beginning, but later on they completely lost their enthusiasm and ended up not as a Buddhist practitioner at all, because their mind just get very untamed, and they would commit to various kinds of vice actions. So whomsoever you are, if your mind is not tamed, it could lead to detrimental results. I heard of a Khenpo. In fact, as a Khenpo, especially Tibetan Khenpos, it's very difficult for people to receive the degree of a Khenpo, and people usually would consider them as of someone who is considered as, for example, an elite. However, people whomsoever graduated from here and holding even a Khenpo degree, if after encountering to various things, maybe their actions are not even as appropriate as lay practitioners, as some very devout lay practitioners. Similarly, just like how we should not treat everyone who graduated from Harvard University or Peking University, Tsinghua University, and so on and so forth as the greatest elite of all, we shouldn't treat the ones who graduated from Larangar, from Vikramshila Vihara, or from the Nalanda, for example, as thinking that they are of the best. We shouldn't just generalize people like that. We shouldn't have such kind of a stereotype. I'm not talking about the others, I'm talking about ourselves, including myself. Now that we have such a supreme opportunity to study the Mahayana Dharma, after a few years, are we still going to have the same kind of mindset? Sometimes impermanence can be quite terrifying, and we don't really know what's going to happen to even ourselves. Therefore, we have to supplicate to the Guru, to the Three Jewels, to the protectors, so that all of those undesirable things would not happen to us. Even if it happens in a short period of time, with the power of blessings from all the lineage masters and protectors, it would not last for a long period of time, and it would not obscure our practice as well as our activities of propagating the Dharma and benefiting sentient beings. So over here, we know that we have to work with our right mindfulness to tame our mind right away. We shouldn't let the mind just go astray and let it go about without any without taming it at all. Otherwise, you would lose the mind, and all of your effort of the past would be in vain. And then over here, it continued to say that those who allow their mind to wander freely lose the goodness that people do, by straining it in one place, there is no affair which cannot be completed. For this reason, bhikshus, you should vigorously subdue your mind. You should try your very best to subdue your own mind, to tame your mind. Our mind, if you can tame it, even if you were to only study one teaching, for example, Bodhisattva Charyavatara, then you would definitely be very different after studying this. If you can tame your mind accordingly, you would completely transform yourself. In terms of listening to the Dharma and studying the Dharma, there are people who, however, not taking those Dharma teachings to their hearts, and then they become jaded practitioners. They would feel that even if the Buddha is flying there in the space right in front of them, they have no faith generated whatsoever. There are people like such. So there are people of good capacity who can generate understanding and be infused with Dharma to their mind stream in a very short period of time. There are the ones, however, are completely different. There are the ones who, upon hearing just a short teaching, they would practice for a whole life, and then their mind can be completely tamed just by that. Anyhow, over here it talks about without taming one's mind, the result could be very horrifying. Therefore, we have to learn to subdue our mind, tame our mind. According to the essential teachings of all sutras, it says that if one were to let go of his or her mind and get distracted, one would practice all kinds of vice and generate all kinds of negative karmas. If one were to practice according to the teachings of the teachers, the ones who are good at taming their own mind, then they would definitely be able to generate realization of the supreme bliss that is constant. The ones with a good capacity, upon hearing the teachings and receive the blessings of the gurus, they would be able to understand their, to tame their mind and even to recognize the nature of their mind. Let it be the true face of Tathagata Garbha, or seeing the mind in clarity according to the Zen Buddhism. In fact, the ones with good capacity, after realizing all of such, they won't generate any negative deeds. They don't want to generate any deeds. Padampa, in fact, stated that the ones who have already completely realized the emptiness, on the teaching on emptiness, they would not practice the vice, because compassion arises at the same time as the enlightened mind. Therefore, they would not create any vice at all. Over here, it talks about how to tame one's mind. According to the Buddha, he said that one should not practice all vice, and one should abandon the practice of all vice and practice all virtue. One whom purify his or her own mind. In fact, purify one's mind is taming one's own mind. That is the true path of Buddha Dharma. We've already studied that from the three yanas point of view, the abandoning all vice is the practice of Shravakayana. To practice all virtue is the Mahayana, and then to purify one's mind is Vajrayana. So through the wisdom as well as skillful means, the union of such, if you can tame your own mind, recognize the nature of your own mind, those are the teachings in a concise form that talks about how one should unite the teachings of the three yanas. Taming your mind is indeed of crucial importance. You have to tame your mind yourself. It is not to speak of the others. In fact, I am talking about myself as well. Sometimes when I look at my own mind, I get disappointed, and sometimes I feel a sense of console as well, because I've at least learned to observe my mind. And in this dark age, I have already encountered such kind of Dharma that is like the sunlight of the Dharma that is still in this dark age. And I am still born in this age. I have the opportunity to encounter the correct Dharma. I still have the opportunity to engage in study, contemplation, and practice. I've already encountered so many wonderful spiritual teachers and read so many sutras, shastras, and the tantras, and studied for so many years, studied in this valley for so many years, though that I have not achieved any enlightenment or attained rainbow body. In fact, not mentioning about rainbow body, my body is getting older and getting heavier, and well, sometimes I do get discouraged. But in whichever way, we are still trying very hard to tame our own mind. We still probably have lots of afflictions, and we should still try our best to work with it and confess, engage in various kinds of methods of making confession. Those are also really good. We're really talking about the teachings from various levels. I'm not sure if you've noticed that. Over here, then, the Buddha continued to say that all of you, bhikshus, you should accept various kinds of food and drinks as if you were taking medicine. So you should think about taking those food as taking medicines so that you can cure the illness of your body, whether they be good or bad. Do not take more or less of them. There are people nowadays who only take the good food, and they would overeat, and whenever it doesn't taste good, they would only taste a tiny bit. In fact, the taste, good taste or bad taste, according to the masters of the past, they usually would say that the reason of our consuming of food is to nourish this physical body. But people nowadays, they pick on whether it tastes good or not, especially practitioners. If they do so, if they are a very picky eater, then it's really a sign of that you're not a good practitioner. In the past few months in the winter, when I was engaging in winter retreat, I was cooking for myself. Before cooking for myself, I usually would feel that, why did they cook so bad? It tastes really horrible. But when it was my time to cook, the taste that I cooked was, well, very disappointing as well. And then I started to appreciate other people's cooking. So sometimes if you can't cook well, then it is really unreasonable for you to complain about other people's cooking. When I first came here to Larungar, my meal every day for a month, for a few months even, would be tsampas only. There's no other vegetables. We don't even hear the name of different vegetables. Really, there's no vegetables available. I remember there was once around the New Year's time, a lama invited me to eat at his place, and he bought this tin of chili sauce. A chili sauce that's mixed with soya beans, fermented soya beans. So that was the New Year's Eve dinner that we had. Back then, that was the condition over here in Larungar. But people were so happy. We engaged in contemplation study of the Dharma every day, and we don't feel that this one doesn't feel good and that one doesn't feel good. That one doesn't taste good. In fact, we don't really have time to pick on the food at all. But nowadays, I think people are very picky. Our tongue is only this short. Keep in mind, and after the food passes through our tongue, then it just becomes impure. So what's the point of picking on the taste of food? According to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, it says that once you have swallowed the food, it becomes impure right away. Therefore, we should definitely look at food as a means of medicine to nurture our physical body. This is an appropriate way of looking at food. According to Buddha Charita, where it says that one should know the limit when dining, one should intake food as if you're taking medicine. One should not generate desire nor aggression towards food. I think in terms of food, the male practitioners are doing better than the female, because in the female practitioners' chattings, I usually hear that they would talk about, do they cook well? Does the hot pot in the other restaurant taste good? They usually talk about that. It's fine to talk about it once in a while on maybe Saturday, maybe on Sundays. However, we should not generate too much grasping towards it. Otherwise, we would generate a great vice, negative karma because of food. According to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, where it says that if one do not look at taking food as a way of maintaining the physical body, rather if one were to grasp onto the food, then such kind of mindset would lead one to be reborn as an impure insect. The story was that there was one Shramana who really enjoyed cheese, and because he had lots of grasping towards cheese, and then after he dies, he took rebirth as an insect that was living inside of the jar of the cheese. His teacher is an arhat, and he has miraculous penetration and knows this. Then his teacher said to the other disciples, saying that, be careful of my Shramana disciple who loves cheese. And the rest of the bhikshus did not understand what the teacher meant. After looking through the cheese inside the jar, they saw the little insect. So that was the story behind this teaching. Anyhow, if we were to grasp onto anything with great desire, it could lead us to the consequences that is not desirable. As mundane beings, of course, it's very difficult for us to not grasp onto anything. We cannot, we're not arhats, and we can't reach that level yet. But at least when we are eating, we should have right mindfulness. We shouldn't eat too much nor too little. According to the jewel forest of the Dharma garden, where it says that if you were eat if you were to eat too much, that could lead to sickness. If people tend to eat too much, then they would not be able to practice in samadhi or recitation, because eating too much would lead to such kind of drowsiness. On the other hand, if you were to eat only a little bit, then too less of the food will not be able to support your physical body. You won't have any energy at all in this physical body. Then you don't have any strength to engage in steady contemplation of the correct Dharma. The meal, in terms of the Buddhism teaching, the Buddhist teaching on how to intake a meal is in fact very important. Nowadays, people would eat a lot just so that they won't waste the food. They feel that I have to eat everything, I have to finish everything so that all the food won't go waste. Well, on one hand, that's not really good, because if you want to finish all the food, but if you were to stuff yourself all the time, then that could bring negative impact upon your physical body. That could lead to negative consequences as well. So at certain times, and then you can pack up everything, you can then save it for later. There are people, however, they feel very, they can have a big appetite to eat whatever is left over. And whenever I think of anyone, when I'm giving teaching on this, I right away in my mind I think of someone. There are people who are very good at finishing all the food. When we talk about meal, I think it's quite important not to eat too much nor too little. The teachings that's given back then by the Buddha is still very applicable in the 21st century. And then the next one, the Buddha then continued to say that the bhikshus should use them to cure hunger and thirst and to maintain the body. In fact, in our world, there's no way that we can maintain this body without food. So to dispel all kinds of sickness that's related to hunger and thirst, we definitely need to eat food. To continue, then the Buddha started to give another analogy. We have to understand, and we have to know the limits. We have to understand what is an appropriate amount. Let it be in any aspect, meal or relating to the others. In fact, knowing what is the appropriate extent is really important. Over here, then, the Buddha said that bhikshus should be the same way as the bees gathering from flowers, only taking the pollen without harming their form or scent. The main reason of taking meal is to nurture the physical body so that the physical body would have the enough strength to work with the afflictions and thirst and so on and so forth, so that one would have enough energy to work with afflictions and to pursue the Dharma. However, if one were to get overly zest with meal and desire for meal, then that would not only destroy yourself, but also would destroy the mind of the others as well. Because usually the monastics should receive offering, but if as non-monastic, if you generate more and more greed and ask more and more from your benefactors, then it would eventually destroy the other's virtuous root. According to the Vinaya Sutra, in fact, it talks about the honeybee, in fact, also has great right mindfulness, because as an insect, it only takes what is needed for oneself, but not destroy the whole flower. Some people who just got ordained, they do not understand the precepts yet. After getting ordained, they would receive various kinds of offerings. And then they would make all kinds of requirements, saying that I need this, I need that. The other day I said that do not post this kind of requests online, saying that, oh, I am making more of those money rocks and I'm hanging those prayer flags. So I need money. But later on, you will know that this kind of people, in fact, do not engage in contemplation and study and practice of the Dharma. They only uphold such an image of practicing and accumulation of virtuous deeds. They would talk about things with the others so that the others would generate faith and want to cultivate more merit. However, if you were to continuously do so without knowing the limitation, it would easily generate afflictions from the others would easily generate afflictions, and then eventually probably pull you to the blacklist and would block you, and then I think it is not beneficial to yourself nor the others. You have to know the appropriate extent of relating to the others. You need wisdom as well as skillful means. Otherwise, the other people probably won't be able to tread on the path for a long period of time, and they might easily give up this path because they generate a wrong view towards you. So we have to definitely consider ourselves as well as the others. The next one talks about how one should be like a wise man, and you have to estimate the load of the burden that would suit to the strength of his ox. In fact, if you were to overburden the ox or an yak, that could tire the animal to death. Over here it talks about receiving people's offering to put an end to distress, but do not seek to obtain too much and spoil their good hearts. Therefore, like a wise man, as a practitioner, a genuine practitioner, we should definitely pay attention to the appropriate amount. We have to understand and we have to consider how to use the alms appropriately given by the benefactors. And we have to think about how we can generate enough merit in order to be worthy to receive the alms. You shouldn't think that, well, since I'm a monastic, I'm wearing this robe, therefore I am the merit-filled. I am so great and I can receive whatever offerings the other give me. That is not necessarily true. Over here it talks about how the monastics should enjoy the meal. And then in terms of the lay practitioners, it's very difficult. In fact, I think for the lay practitioners, you should also contemplate upon all the offerings, and all the resources are indeed very difficult to accumulate. Each of the grains are cultivated with great hardship. In the Chinese monasteries, usually they have this they would have a hall of 5 contemplations, and that is the 5 contemplation up on to receive any alms, especially meals. If you do not use those 5 contemplations, if you do not eradicate the 3 poisons that's in your mind, then it would be difficult to even digest fully of the water. But if you were to practice engaging the 5 contemplations, then it's easy to even be worthy to receive gold. There are various kinds of regulations when engaged in chanting and having meals and making offerings and so on and so forth. In fact, in Tibet, it is the same. However, we do not have a specific hall set up to engage in the 5 contemplations. The first contemplation out of the 5 is that the rice and all the materialistic provisions that's given by a benefactor, in fact, it comes from the lots of hardship and efforts from the others. If you do not make perfect dedication or good dedication, then it would be difficult for you to be worthy to receive this. And second contemplation is that you have to contemplate if you have the perfect morality and the practice to be worthy, so that you be worthy to receive the other's offering. Do you or are you qualified to receive the offerings? And the third one is that whenever you receive the meals that's offered to you, you should then have all the implement or have all the merit as well as the virtuous deeds to enjoy the three meals. It is then devoid of all kinds of excessive desire. And the fourth one is that when you are enjoying the meal, you should think of the meal as a wonderful medicine that could nurture the body. It is not to nurture the body so that you can grasp onto the body. It is rather to use this body to engage in practice, and to use this body so that your body would be able to engage in the practice of benefiting sentient beings. The fifth one is to benefit sentient beings, to be of benefit of sentient beings, rather than staying here and just spending your lifetime, squandering your lifetime frivolously. It is not like that at all. Therefore, those are the five contemplations. Though we do not have this hall of five contemplations, but whenever it's time to enjoy the meals that's made by our staff member in our canteens, then it is or in a group, as a group, if we were to receive the meals made as an offering by the benefactors, we should chant the mantras, we should practice whatever practices that we need to engage in, and make offering to the three jewels and not waste the food, so that we can be worthy to receive the offerings of the others. I think we need to also contemplate up on how much people have to work every day so that they can provide a livelihood for themselves as well as their family. We need to contemplate how much effort they have to put into that. So as monastics, if we do not uphold the precepts, and if we do not have any merit of samadhi and wisdom, then it's very difficult for us to be worthy of offering. Otherwise, we have to maybe be reborn as animals and repay all of the benefactors' offerings. And the next one. Over here talks about practicing virtuous deeds or with great diligence. All of you, bhikshus, during the day with vigorous mind cultivate the Dharma and do not allow the opportunity to be lost. So during the day, you have to practice, you have to engage in diligent practice and do not waste and squander your time. While impermanence could dawn at any time, so we have to practice during the day with great diligence. And during the first and later periods of night, also do not be lax. And during the middle period of the night, you can chant sutras and make yourself well informed. Do not squander your time, your life. During the beginning period of the night, we engage in studying contemplation and practice of the Dharma. We listen to classes. And in the last period of the time of the night, or sometimes we can call that this is really early morning, we can get up earlier and we can engage in the Dharma practice. In the middle part of the night, in fact, we can also engage in chanting. It is not to say that you do not sleep at all. You can sleep, but when you're sleeping, do not lose right mindfulness. One should definitely practice chanting and supplication as well as prostrations before sleeping. I think it's quite important to have such kind of habit. Nowadays, people example, nowadays I know lots of practitioners have this kind of habit to prostrate 3 times before go to bed, and then we also practice prostration before class through prostrations, and it's been going on for over 20 years. So before going to bed, you should prostrate 3 times, chant some mantra, chant some sutras, contemplate upon the Buddha. All of those are really important. And when you are sleeping, do not let the causes and conditions of sleeping be the main theme of your whole life. There are people who would sleep in all the time and would not be able to accomplish anything. According to Sakya Pandita, he said that our life is already short, and out of this short period of life, we spend over half of it in sleeping, and we only have this little bit of life left. Lots of oldness and sickness, as well as all kinds of sufferings, would then be the cause of us to waste our life. So not many people have lots of the time to engage in practice. In terms of sleeping, I don't think I am. In fact, I don't think I sleep a lot, but recently I've been sleeping a little too much. So from tomorrow onwards, I'm going to set my alarm and I'm going to get up early as I used to. Of course, I'm not saying that you shouldn't sleep at all. I'm saying that you do need to have good sleep. However, the sufficient amount of sleep is not set by your mind, and the boundary of sufficient is not completely up to your heart's desire. Especially if you like sleeping, then there are people who can sleep for dozens of hours a day. But in fact, sleeping for 5-6 hours is more than enough. Therefore, do not sleep and do not waste your life in sleeping. One should also be mindful of the fire of impermanence, which burns up all the world. You should contemplate that I need to gain liberation, therefore I shouldn't indulge myself in sleeping. This is really important. The fire of impermanence is indeed horrifying. We should contemplate upon this every day. This may be the last day of my life, and time do not wait for anyone. According to the Sutra of Right Mindfulness, it says that before the dawning of death, one should practice upon the virtuous deeds. In fact, death do not have any compassion, so we should practice up on virtue at all times when we still have the opportunity. Therefore, since we're still healthy, then at least if we can chant even one mantra of the Chirinzik mantra of Om Mani Padme Hum, of all of those kind of mantras, then if you can chant it, it would be really important. Once the Mara of death have already caught you, and once, for example, if you were to be diagnosed as last stage cancer, and the doctor says that you are about to die, and then at that time, if you were to chant Om Mani Padme Hum, it's probably very difficult. So while you're still free, try to practice. Indeed, the human body is very difficult to gain. Let's not waste it. Let's not squander our life throughout the day and throughout the evening and engage in sleeping all the time and drowsiness. I think the worldly beings are indeed quite pitiful, because it doesn't matter how much we try, there are lots of time that's wasted. When I contemplate upon my own time, I don't think I wasted a lot of time. There are lots of meetings I have to attend, but those are the meetings that I have to attend to serve the Sangha. But other than that, I don't think I've wasted lots of time. In terms of sleeping, we shouldn't arrange the time of sleeping based on our habitual patterns. If that's the case, that could lead to horrifying consequences. We need to liberate ourselves, and we need to then we need to seek to cross ourselves over the ocean of birth and death and do not engage in oversleeping. According to Bodhisattva Charavatara, where it says that the ship of a human body is very difficult to attain, therefore one should not engage in laxity and in sleep. According to Vasubandhu's commentary, he says that the laziness of mind would generate the laziness to be tread on the path, and then the body would manifest all kinds of laziness and engage in all kinds of drowsiness, and then people would not be able to practice. So the main reason, the root cause of that we do not engage in good practice and liberate sentient beings, the reason that we do not have such power is because we're lazy, we're distracted by sleep, by entertainment, by movies, by cell phones. We already have such a short period of time. We need to engage in practice. I think today we need to maybe stop over here. Though we said that we shouldn't sleep, but it's been too long, I think you would get tired. It's been too long, then you might get tired. In fact, I feel like I can give more teachings. I can give teachings until midnight, but if I were to do so, I don't think you'll be happy about it. Don't sleep anymore. Get up early and get up early to recite the book and to memorize and recite with the books, especially now it's summer. It's really pleasant over here, reciting and reading and contemplation, meditation. This would be really wonderful in the morning. So such a wonderful period of time, we should cherish it.
Jirganan jiranu chuba chubun tsune jwa jwa